Welcome back to Go Figure Customs YouTube channel. This is the fourth installment of Painting 101. This is probably mostly should have been done in time lapse because all I'm really going to be working on in this video is doing the boots and the gloves, I think, and the helmet, because we've already got the base coat and the wash and the dry brushing done on the figure and the vest and kind of accessory parts. So yeah, like I said, probably should have done this in slow-mo or in time lapse. So this is not particularly an interesting episode. Don't know that there's a lot to gain from this one, but if you are painting along, if you've got a figure and you're painting along with me, let's get started. So we've got the base coat done on the green. We've got the wash done, and we did 2 layers of dry brushing. I've also got the base coat and the wash done on the plate carrier, the belt, and the thigh pads. I also decided to go with a tan for the knee areas. I'm not sold on the tan for the knee pads, however, because they kind of get lost in the pants, and I kind of want them to stand out a little bit more. Although they don't look bad, but I don't know, I'm still trying to decide what I want to do with those. So now it's time to dry brush. So we used the Tolaran sand for the base coat, and we used the Seraphim Sepia wash. So there's the wash that we used for this. Here's the base coat. Here's what we're going to use for the dry brush, the Karak Stone. And I may do, like we did with the green, may do a 2-tone dry brush on the tan. So we're going to do the same technique. Use the crappy tester's brush. And one of the things I forgot to mention about how these crappy brushes is you really just don't have to even take care of this brush, because it starts to fan out the less you take care of it, and actually that's advantageous for this technique. So load the brush, we're going to dab most of that off, and I do like a dry brushing technique on the figure stand to get paint out of the brush until there's just enough left. And then the light swiping techniques to hit the textured areas, the raised textured areas. Remember, you don't want to put too much on. What we're trying to do is blend colors. So we're taking 3 colors and trying to make it look like one color, but there's contrast and shades in real life, and that's what we're trying to achieve with the dry brushing and the wash. Good. I think I actually will do a second dry brush layer with the slightly lighter color. Again, if you get too much on your brush, rub it off with your finger, and it still kind of has that, it'll still have that same effect. Especially on a slick, not a slick, but a smooth surface like the holster, I'll definitely put some paint on there and then just rub off excess with a finger tip to help blend it in. Again, I'm not too worried about getting some of the tan into the green areas, because that will just kind of make it look like dust or dirt, which just kind of adds to the realism of the paint job. And oftentimes I'll do a second or a third layer of dry brushing with a tan on green surfaces. Probably could have done time lapse on this, and it would have worked pretty well. Although, might not have been long enough to make it interesting. All right. And then there's the dry brushing done on the plate carrier and the pads, or the holsters. Definitely got some areas that I need to touch up on the back of the thigh here. Either some green or some shading. And I got a little above the knee that needs to be touched up with green. But like I said, I'm not too concerned about staying in the lines at this point in time, because the last thing I'll do is go back and touch up painting errors. So you don't have to be perfect as you're going along. Alright, so next what we're going to do is the boots. I'm going to use that color that the Karak Stone as the base color for the boots. Use a smaller brush actually. Use my 20-0 brush. Cheers for this. can see on the boot there where the wash ran into the, kind of settled on the foot there from the green. Again, not a problem because we're going to go over it with the tan here. And it's going to cover it right up. Might have to do a second coat on it, but because remember you want to do light coat for your base coat, because that's what this is right now, is we're just putting the base coat on the boots. So you want enough to cover the primer or the color underneath, but not enough to obscure detail. So since we started off with a lighter color than we used on the pads, we'll need a lighter color than this for the dry brushing after we do the wash on it, because we'll still do a wash on it as well. And that color we'll use for dry brushing on the boots probably will be the secondary dry brushing color I'll use on like the plate carrier and the pads. I'm not doing the boots all one color, so they'll, like the soles will be a different color and the stripe will be a different color. Always gotta look away when I hear dog lips smacking. Alright, so there's the base coat on the boots done. Sort of, because we're going to do a two-tone, but I'll do the secondary color for the soles and the rest of the boots. I'm going to do a black. I'm not actually going to use black. When I paint black, I like to use Tamiya Sea Blue, because it's kind of an off black. Because remember, when you do a base coat, you need a mid-range color, so you can use a wash on the darker end and then a lighter color for the dry brush. So if you start off with black, you have nowhere to go to do wash. So you kind of hamper yourself in the amount of painting that you can do by using black. So I tend not to use black very much, just because there's nowhere to go with a wash. Wash will just be lost in it. And then once the dry brush, or once the base coat's done on the boots, we'll do a wash on those, and then dry brush them. And then what's next? Probably his gloves. I'm going to do those. Actually, we'll do those now. I'm going to use that same tan, I think. Although tactical gloves usually have like strike pads on the knuckles, so I will leave the knuckles unpainted, and I will use a different color for those. That's what's really nice about figures like these, is there's so much detail in these figures that there's a lot that you can do with just painting to really bring out the details that they've put into this. The strike pads on the left hand are not nearly as visible as they are on the right, which is too bad, but that's fine. You can just a swipe of paint will make it look like there are strike pads there. Again, base coat, so just enough to cover the primer, not enough to obscure detail. If you really wanted to get fancy, there's usually like little pads on the back of fingers as well. It doesn't look like they're sculpted on these, but some of the G.I. Joe guys have the pads sculpted onto the back of the fingers too, so you can really get fancy. One of the areas that I'm not too concerned about is the inside of the palm of the hand, because your guy's going to be holding weapons, and if you swap out your weapons a lot, you're probably going to get paint rubs. So I'm not too concerned about the inside of the palms. I will paint it, but if I get paint rubs, I really don't care. People use sealants to help prevent paint chipping. I don't. I used to seal my figures. When I first started, the company that made the primer that I used to like made a matte sealant that I really liked, but over time the sealant just got grainy. A lot of the sealants that I've used don't tend to give a matte finish. They give a glossy or semi-glossy finish, and I don't want, for the most part, I don't want glossy or semi-glossy finishes on my figures. My Iron Man figures, Iron Man customs, I definitely want. I want as high gloss as I can get, since that's metal. But I don't try and if I was gonna try and make my figures look production, I would probably use a semi-glossy or even a glossy sealant on them to make them look like actual, manufactured toys. And I know some customizers do that, and I think it's a neat technique. But that's not what I am going for. It's not the style that I'm going for. Right, so there's the gloves painted, minus the strike pads on the back of the first knuckles, and the boots are done. So we're going to let that dry a little bit, and then we're going to do the wash on the boots and the gloves. So I went ahead and did the wash on the gloves and the boots while the video was paused. You didn't really need to see me slop some more paint on there. I think we've described the technique enough for you to be able to do it on your own. Just dab it on and brush it out if it starts to pool up. Unfortunately, while I was manipulating the pistol that came with the figure, the holster came off. That's kind of one of the few failings of these figures, is that a lot of times these pistols are too big for the holsters that they come with. They don't fit in these holsters very well. Normally, I think if this was a new figure, normally anybody would be kind of fairly annoyed that happened. A collector specifically is going to be mad. As a customizer, I don't care. This is a real easy fix. Super glue. holster. Press it in there. Just a dab of super glue at the edge. Super glue accelerator. That'll keep it on. And I'm going to use a different pistol, so I'll probably use something, Marauder ink pistol probably is what I'm going to go with. If not, BBI. And that's what I've decided on for a rifle. I'm kind of a little thin on decent weapons at this point in time. I need to put a Marauder ink order in. I need a lot of stuff. But they've been closed up until recently because they're doing their World War II Kickstarter. So the weapon that I've chosen is an old BBI M4 with the shorter barrel, the laser sight on top, and the tack light and grip on the bottom. I think this is an excellent weapon for an HRT guy because these guys do a lot of close quarter combat, CQB. So it's a nice weapon for that kind of thing. So I'm going to let the paint thinner, I'm going to let the super glue accelerator dry, and then we're going to dry brush the boots and the gloves, and then we're going to do the black base coat on the boots and the strike pads on the gloves. And then we're going to start working on the helmet and the neck. Skin tone is probably one of the things I'm going to leave till last. And yeah, so let's do that. Alright, let's do the dry brushing on the gloves and the boots real quick. I'm going to go with Us Habati Bone. I really wish they had not come up with these really goofy names of these paints. They renamed them all several years ago. I gotta sneeze. Excuse me. So same technique as before, load the brush, work it into the bristles, dab the excess off until there's just enough left to do the technique. And actually, I'm going to do the rest of the vest too as the second layer. Hey, do not chew on the couch. Sorry, puppy. can't I chew on the couch? Alright, I'm trying to get as much of this done this morning as I can because I have a dental appointment today. A little wary of dentists in the Ukraine, so when I started having a bad tooth, I really didn't get a chance to do much about it. So I gotta go get that fixed today. And I don't know if I'm gonna be in the mood to talk after I get done at the dentist. Alright, so got the dry brushing on the gloves and the boots and the second layer on the rest of anything that's tan. The knee pads, I've decided I'm going to do a darker green than the green that we used for the base coat, and I'm going to use that same color for his helmet. And that color is going to be, oh good grief, who names these things? Wog Flesh. So I am going to put the head on for the moment, because it will be easier to paint with it on the body. And that's what one of the things I do like about the Joy Toy figures and even the Marauder Task Force and the boss fight stuff is it comes apart easy. Makes it easier to customize. So again, this is another base coat. So thin layer, enough to cover the primer, but not enough to obscure details. Especially on a hard surface, smooth surface, you really want to brush it out to make sure you don't get paint strokes, brush strokes in there. Although it's not necessarily a bad thing if you do, because again, light reflects off surfaces, so it's nothing is truly one solid color. I just want enough paint on there. See, especially on a smooth surface, you're just going to move paint around. So what I'm going to do is put the base coat on and then let it dry, and then I'm going to hit it with the second base coat layer. Get the edge of the helmet here. And he's got some headphones on underneath, so we'll do those. That will be done in black, so it will stand out from the balaclava, which we're going to do in. Okay, the dog, I had to pause the video right there because the puppy had gotten something that she should not have. And it's right at 30 minutes again, so hopefully that was, I knew this episode probably was not going to be one of the more interesting ones. There's not a lot to gain from this that I haven't already talked about in other videos. But we're almost done with the figure. So let's progress on to the next step, and then the next steps in the next video. Tune in for the next one. Thank you for watching.